yeah, well, it's not that big a difference, right? I mean, going from a score from 2100 to 2180 is not that huge a drop in performance, right? It looks quite a lot when you plot it, crunch the axis. You know, you could imagine that the people from the brain exercise, they would have had the scale going from 0 to 3000, and then it would have looked like it was a straight line. But you do what Soldier does and change the range, and now it looks like, oh, look at that. You're right, that's a good point. I think it's appropriate to do that and say that, because if you look at these standard error bars, they're not huge. I mean, so that seems like you get a picture of the size of the effect there. Now remember, when the error bars overlap, there's probably no difference. But these are huge differences. Yes, it is significant. Even though in terms of absolute numbers, it's not. So Nugget and colleagues, an interesting discovery. What did we teach individuals? Some of the, when we talk about super memory, there's some memory strategies that you can learn that actually give you superior memory performance. If your memory is declining, you overcome that decline by learning strategies that make it better. So if the notion is you've got less there, but we use it more efficiently. Now this is not new, because I'm just wanting to ask you, what if you added point systems to words rather than just remembering words, but you actually gave them scores, so they had to remember the high scoring words. Older people don't, the number of words declines, but their relative value, they're actually more selective. So can we actually train older people to develop using the method that will buffer them, which overcomes this problem? So this is an interesting study. We trained old and young participants on the method of loci, which is that one that we saw in the where you visualize a pathway and you put objects at those pathways, you know the codes for those objects, and then you just retrace your steps. It's very, remember the guy with the cars walking through London? That's it. We found some old participants improved, but others did not. So these are the older, these are the younger ones. This is the number of serially recalled words. So then train them on, this is their past performance. This is at the start, after learning the mnemonic. This is afterwards. So these are the young, and you can see that the young adults your age have showed improvement in the recall of these words using that strategy. But he finds that there are some old individuals who don't show any improvement at all. But there are some old individuals who show as good an improvement. Some of them are showing as good as the young. How can it be the case? Again, we're showing this variability. It does work, but for some people it doesn't work at all, and some people it works really well as well as these results. Well, when you look at the PET scan, so when they measure the activation in the brain, when you're using this strategy, this is sort of what you saw in the super individual, you see increased activity in specific regions of the brain. In the left occipital parietal region and in the dorsolateral prefrontal region. So these two regions of the brain are activated when you actually perform this task. So when young adults show this activity when they're doing the task, they show activity in both regions of the brain. The old people who never show any effect of the mnemonic strategy show no brain activity happening in those two regions of the brain. It's just not working. They're not utilizing the brain to start the strategy. Now the interesting thing is the old adults, remember, who did show some improvement, don't show both activations, but they do show it in the prefrontal. Or actually in the so the old adults show activity in the prefrontal region 1. They're not showing it in both regions, but at least they're showing in one. The old people who don't are showing activity. Well, what does this mean? Is it that these old individuals who can't use the strategy don't have the brain because they didn't understand the instructions, they may actually perform strategy? And why is it the older adults who should, if they're using the strategy and showing the advantage, why are they able to show that advantage even though they're not showing the pattern of brain activation which would suggest that they're using that strategy? Alright, so let's bring this to the mental training. Active is a large National Institute of Mental Health funded project, which is my project. interested in training of specific cognitive function. This was a huge study. Hundreds and hundreds, millions of dollars were poured into it to really look at this question about whether you could give some people practice, mental practice at tasks that they will show some tasks. They focused on three aspects. They looked at reasoning training. So reasoning training involved looking for patterns and sequences of stimuli. They did memory training, so there was verbal episodics, probably just word this, involved using, and then teaching them mnemonic strategies such as use of imagery, association. And then there was a speed of processing task, which is basically they just do lots and lots of practice at very simple perceptual tasks, which gets a little bit more difficult, and they just keep making it more difficult to get practice out. So these are basically just cognitive tasks. And you can practice or maybe some strategies to be better at. And they gave all these old people these strategies. And then they wanted to see, did you get improvement after learning, giving this practice, exercising mind, providing this mental training? The first thing is to look to see, did you see actual improvement in the actual tasks that they're targeting? So they measured reasoning, they measured memory performance, and they measured attention speed. And then they also wanted to see, did it then generalize to more ecologically balanced everyday cognitive tasks. So they have everyday problem-solving tasks, and they have everyday speed processes. Really, they're just providing contextual information to these sort of tasks. Those sort of tasks that making a shopping list, doing things like that. All right. So this was a huge, enormous study. This was going to answer. It was just conducted 10 years ago over the Sea Institute of Happiness. When they first tested it, it looked like there were some huge advantages. So here's our untrained people. And you can see that the training really did help in their performance. And this is kind of what the people in that study emphasized. Look at the advantage. Salthouse then followed them. And you can see that after a 1 year period, a 2 year period, things are starting to fall back to normal. So he argued that, yes, it's successful, but it doesn't seem to have a long-term success. Even 2 years later, individuals are starting to fall away in their performance.
Were they still using it, though?
I don't think so, no.
So,
I'm not sure about that.
I mean, it seems like maybe they were using parts of it, and maybe that's why it fell back, but if they had come back for refreshers...
You're right. I mean, it might be the case that I'd have to go back and look at the study, but I can't remember if they continued the training over the 2 year period or they just did it at the start and then looked to see what they were doing at that time. And I think unless you really get people in doing this with someone, I think it's pretty hard to think that it's doing it.
I was curious how long the training was in the first place.
I can't remember. I think it was pretty intensive. Over a reasonable period of time. So those effect size are probably in standard deviations again, and they're reasonably large size. So to do that sort of effect, I think you have to have a fair bit of training. Especially in the speed of training. When you look at the transfer to everyday cognitive function, they did a 5-year analysis of the active participants. These are the ecologically valid cognitive tasks. So self-ratings of distance and things everyday tasks, finance, housekeeping, meal making, shopping. Now, self-report, again, is not a great way of evaluating that. That's the only way you can do it, especially with such huge numbers. And you can see that by year 5, it started off good. After 1 year, 2 years, and then it's starting to show the and there was some evidence that there was more decline in the control group, so it might have buffered it a little bit, but it doesn't, the point about, but they were continuing to do it. So maybe they continue to do it when they do it. But imagine the resources of do a 5-year study, tracking old people getting into meet every week to do these exercises and tasks. I mean, it just seems infeasible for us to do that sort of research. And just bringing them in once doesn't seem to help. And if you can get the performance improved,
Dr.
all right, so,
maybe there's nothing out there on it, but comparing this age group to you know, 30s, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds who are kind of set in their ways but still not so declined, you know, but maybe it's just the routine of this is my life. I wonder how much of a difference there is between those.
Interesting thing, positivity effect. Most of the found older people is they're actually more likely to be in a positive mood than you are.
Right.
And it's called the positivity effect. Some people have argued because when you get into a old, you now look at what life is left, and you think to yourself, I don't want to waste this now being negative, being upset. I'm going to focus on the positive aspect of life. So actually, they tend to be more positive, counter to, maybe they're in a boring, mundane activity, life part of their life. They are tending to focus on more positive. Certainly, if you look at the assisted living now, they're encouraging much more activity in their places. They're not like just shutting them up in their room and trying to get them socially engaged and cognitively engaged. It doesn't really harm, especially the socialising part. But yeah, I mean, is it something to do with their lifestyle, I guess, is what they're saying at that age.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. They do become more isolated, but if you look at the positivity effect, they actually, in terms of emotion regulation and understanding emotions and using emotions, they're actually pretty good.
I just mean like they're not being, like where's the challenge? You know, like you're in school, you're constantly supposedly being challenged. You know, there's a test, there's a this, there's a that, there's someone, you know, you're engaged in a way that these cognitive tests would. Right.
It's more like a curve, like a U curve. But you're right, I mean, certainly their lifestyle is changing dramatically. It's not all bad news, let me say. It's not bad news there. Physical activity will improve your brain function. That is a fact. I'm not saying that physical activity can't stave off cognitive decline. It will. If you're physically active or physically healthy, it's a fact that you will decline less cognitively. We don't know what these measures are. These people don't know if you're being physically active or whatever. But the research of physical activity is overwhelming. It's the cognitive research that cognitive activity is not so overwhelming. Physical activity is good. So what Stern and colleagues suggest is one of the reasons why we get into thinking of different differences is that people have different amounts of brain reserve. So the brain changes over age, but how much of a change will happen because of the natural degeneration of the neural system will depend on how much brain reserve you have and how much cognitive reserve. Brain reserve will be a function of your physical activity and physical health. Cognitive reserve is what we don't know is how do we kind of benefit that. Now, it could be that you have a neural advantage, or it could be that you develop strategies to overcome the neural disadvantage. Two possibilities why you have more cognitive reserve and why you don't seem to show the same problem. So either you have a more efficient brain or a larger capacity brain to start with, or you've been able to generate other techniques to overcome the natural pathogenesis of the brain. Right. So just to show you that there may be some support for the fact that we can improve our cognitive reserve, increase the cognitive reserve. This is an obscure study, I don't know why I like it. So this is a study where they looked at changes in actual physical brain matter after teaching individuals to juggle. That's how I like it. Get more people to juggle for 3 months. So they had a young group of adults, and they had an older group of adults, and they taught them to juggle for 3 months. And what they were curious is when you're learning this new procedural skill, now this is not a declarative thing, right? I mean, you juggle, it's like riding a bike, procedural memory, it's not something that you can acquire. But what they found was that there were changes in the brain matter of the brain as a function of juggling. They actually saw some physical changes to the brain, learning this procedural skill. And young adults also showed certain effects, but also older adults showed the same region as well. Now, it disappears when you stop practicing the skill, but they were able to show that when these older individuals were able to do this new task, there was a brain matter increase. And what I did about it is in the hippocampus, which involved in processing movement. So it looks like that there can be some sort of new neural information, new neural regions of the brain that can be developed, even in an aging brain, by getting them to perform complex tasks. In this case, it was a movement task, it was a particular movement. But it is possible maybe that, you couldn't, or because there's some kind of mean that you can't add to the brain. Now, the second one is, can we develop strategies to compensate for this damage? So let's get back to this bilateral activation. This is an area that I've been looking at now for the last 4 or 5 years. So what they found is that, so here's a, this is work from Duke University. Here's a word paired recall task, and you see for young adults, primarily the right frontal cortex is performing the task. Here's a word stem cued recall task, which is an implicit memory task, and you see again, strong right prefrontal activation. Word recognition task from right. False recognition task would have been a DRM possible task. You can see a little bit of activity in here, but again, right, very lateralized, isn't it? If you see the young adult. But here's the older adult, and you can see that they're showing this bilateral activation, and it seems to be in the opposite region, the contralateral area of the brain. So what's happening here? Why are these older adults showing activation in the opposite region of the brain, both regions of the brain, performing a task which at your age you're doing fairly unilateral? So if these are, and a few other people have come up with this argument that maybe what's happening is that the aged individuals, and the reason why you're seeing some people not showing that decline, is that they're compensating for a loss of damage in this region by now incorporating the other area of the brain to compensate. And that's why it's called the compensation hypothesis. They're recruiting other regions of the brain, usually the contralateral, the opposite side, to compensate for losses in performing the cognitive task. I'm interested in this because this notion of bilateral activation and coordinating the two hemispheres is something I'm interested in as well, not just in aging, but just in general. So it appears that even in young adults, showing bilateral activation has a superior performance than uni active.
Do you know if in young children they are uni or bilateral?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they go bilateral to unilateral or they start off.
I know children typically start out like ambidextrous.
Yeah, I don't know what the memory tasks are.
Right.
I suspect they're not. But I don't think
If you were to increase the complexity for the young people, would they show, like, how do you get to bilateral activation in young people?
So, that's a good question. If you made the task harder, would they start to recruit the other region? So this is exactly what my advanced research class tried to do on the way. So, the task we gave people, you had to, you saw 3 letters. And we know when we got a fixation point, we were putting these letters in certain regions of the visual field. And we mentioned how far they were, and they were sitting there. So, the question was, you had to say that there were 2 letters that matched, or 2 letters that didn't match. And you can see that these 2 letters match. But one's on the left visual field and one's on the right visual field. So we did another task, same task, but maybe sometimes the stimuli looks like this. Now they match, and they're both on the same visual field. But here you have to incorporate information from the right visual field and link it to information from the left visual field. People are better at this task than this. However, if you change the task slightly, and you do this again, so now you're comparing 2 different fonts. They're better at this task. And what, the argument is that with a more complex task, people are able to take advantage of integrating these 2 different parts of the brain. And so this is an advantage. In our experiment, we showed this, but we also, before they did the task, they either watched a light, something appearing on the screen just go like this. And then on other conditions, we made them follow a target moving from the left vision field to the right vision field. And the argument is that this should be describing interhemispheric information. So if you do this before this task, you would do even better at this. And that's what we found. So following up your point about, if you actually encourage people to do this, when you meditate, it looks like meditation, people who meditate are more likely to use less. Brett and I are doing a study at the moment where we're looking at people who are we're testing super brain yoga. Have you heard of super brain yoga? I happen to be an expert on it. So super brain yoga was developed by a Filipino yogi master. And it's under anecdotal evidence at the moment, but people who work in with special needs kids, basic doctors and whatever, are suggesting that this can actually, super brain yoga can facilitate memory. So what is it? If you have your left ear with your right thumb and pointer finger, you grab your, so everybody do this. We're going to do super brain yoga together. You have to stand up. Everybody stand up. Alright, so, thumb facing frontward, you grab your left earlobe and squeeze it with your right hand. Grab that one and squeeze it with the left hand. It has to be crossed. And then while you're squeezing, you swap. That's super brain yoga. Can you believe that? Yeah, this is super brain yoga. Alright, you sit down. Feel any incredible second half is fast. Things that work for some crazy reasons. And what I was reading about, I'm thinking, the squeezing, you're crossing your hands, you have to coordinate both hemispheres to do this task. You have to physically squeeze the left hemisphere, left lobe with the right hand. To do that is quite a coordinated task. So Brett and I are actually testing. Yes, we've got people doing this. We're not squatting, we're just doing this. Just squeezing your earlobe. I can't wait to see this. Anyway, you can Google super brain yoga. So, at the moment it's anecdotal. There are people from schools in Pennsylvania who are really buying into it and getting into using it and getting implemented now. It's still anecdotal, but it fits with my argument that if interhemispheric activation primes the use of both hemispheres, getting back to the point, then just this stupid crazy technique might actually benefit. And doing any task that requires bilateral activation and coordinating both hemispheres may prime and make this getting and working together. Now, getting back to that point, not all people show a unilateral activation. There are some young adults who show bilateral activation, and on the whole, they're better at the task. So it looks like this notion that if we can recruit both reasons, Professor Kiefer and I have now adapted this task into an EEG study. We're trying to find out if we can find a neural correlate that shows this difference. That we can signal whether the two brains are interacting. That's what we can't work out yet. How do you show when the two brains are working together? So we're trying to work out a neural correlate of that using this task. So for people who meditate, show bilateral activation. Alright, and if you're wondering why we were doing this, this is the hottest therapy at the moment in treating post-traumatic stress disorder. It's called EMDR. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And one of the arguments, so all they do with these kind of battle-hardened trauma victims is they get them to think about the memory while they're doing it, and just keep watching them for the rest of life. And what the thing is actually facilitate the processing of memory information because we're priming the two hemispheres to coordinate with each other. So this is kind of a hot topic at the moment. So, now, there are some people who don't agree with this notion that having bilateral activation is a good thing and that all people are showing that bilateral activation is not an advantage. What they think it is, it actually just reflects damage. So the reason they can't lateralize is because of the damage, it just kind of happens to the other hemisphere. It's not because the other hemisphere is saying, oh, I can help. It's just that because they can't control the lateralization, it just spreads. It's natural part of the stress. So they don't believe in conversation, they just think that, that's what happens. But the counter to that is that people who show bilateral activation do better, and even young adults do better with this bilateral activation.
Is it the bilateral activation earlier in the lecture you said, as you go older, you lose some asymmetry in the brain? Is that how that's related?
Yep. So at the time, I think they thought that was a bad thing. But now they've turned it around going, hang on, actually those people who show that bilateral activation actually do better. Like it seems to help. So before it was seen as like, well, that's just bad, now you can't, you're so brain, you can't even focus on the region of the brain. But the other option is, maybe that's smart.
I know schools have changed a lot in the last, several decades. Is it possible that schooling may have had an effect that some older participants are better at being bilateral, whereas the way that school is now, it's not teaching so much the bilateralism? Because you said that some people can do bilateralism and they do better at tasks.
I don't know about schooling and why that would have an effect. Well, what's changed in schooling that might discourage bilateral activation?
I'm not sure exactly. I just know that, I know that there has been a significant change. There, it seems
Well,
like.
I know there's middle schools in Pennsylvania where they're starting every class doing this. And they're showing rapidly major improvements in reading and in math and in classroom behavior.
It's just the pain of it.
Well, my concern is like the further away you live from the therapist, the better the treatment things you get. It's like the more, this one as well, when this first came out, that you should do this. I remember McNally, the guy who always criticised and everything, that's crazy. He just said that this was the closest he'd seen to hypnotic suggestion. He thought he wrote a beautiful scathing attack on it. But the trouble is, it keeps working. I had a student in this class who went to a therapist here in Williamsburg about testing anxiety. And she said, she came up to me after the class and she said, he was doing this with me. I mean, people who do it swear by it. And it's regarded as the gold standard in treating post-traumatic. There are some explanations for why it may have an effect. One of them is that maybe it mimics eye movements while you're dreaming. Now remember we talked about memory consolidation occurring during dreaming and sleep. So doing this is like what rapid eye movements will say, you trick the brain into thinking you're sleeping and therefore it starts consolidating that memory and therefore it's less likely to be problem. Ashley thinks it's because you're interfering with the executive control system. So when you reconsolidate that memory using working memory, this thing is interfering with it. The only trouble with that is, if you do this, it doesn't work. But if you do this, it works. And it works if it goes like this, and it goes like that. So I think, about this idea that it's really working, I'm not sure. All right. So it's a long answer to your question. We're getting there. All right. Here's another example, again showing this bilateral activation result. So this is a study comparing episodic memory recognition. Remember the remember-no distinction? You either remember seeing words, and you correctly guess them right, or you guess that they're the right words or the old words, but only because you had a feeling you've seen before. Remember, HM was good at this part, we couldn't do that part. And the nice thing about these two different responses is that you see different patterns of effect. So when people make a familiarity judgment, you see that there's prefrontal activity around 300 milliseconds of EEG data. And if you do the recollection, you see a late parietal effect. Remember we did that study where we gave people Midazolam, the date rate, you see that what effect it would have, and it wiped out this, but still left this. Well, again, what they found is that with older adults, they're showing this effect in both sides of the hemisphere, whereas in young adults, they're showing it on one side. Any electrodes that have, so these are, whenever they're even electrodes and odd electrodes, it depends on which side of the odds are left and evens are right. So again, suggesting that there's some advantage in bilateral recruitment of the brain to perform the intervention task. Now this was another study that I found that kind of, again, was trying to argue about compensation, and I think it's a little bit of a problem for it. So they found, they did implicit memory tasks. Now remember, implicit memory tasks, like a word fragment task, you don't show aging and decline. it's not a task that we see. It's the declarative memory, the acute recall, pre-recall, when you see working memory tasks. Implicit memory tasks, we don't see any decline. And yet they found that those individuals, the older adults who show bilateral activation, so here's the young adults when they perform the task, and here's some older adults, and they're showing activation of biochemistry. And they found that those people who showed this bilateral activation did better on the implicit memory test. But hang on, that's the test that's not supposed to show any decline. Why would bilateral activation still be superior? There's no need for it to be recruited because we don't show a decline in implicit memory tasks. So when I saw this, I thought they were going to show that this was an argument against bilateral activation. But they actually turned around and said they still think it's good because those adults who did show the most left side activation showed the strongest effect, the strongest relationship. So I guess even in implicit memory tasks, is there no real need to recruit this bilateral activation? They still show the effect of this advantage of bilateral activation. Alright, so one secret to all of this is to try and do some bilateral activation with your older relatives. Also, one other thing that you might want to do, it also requires bilateral activation and coordination, is to actually play Wii games. And this now is called exergaming. Now, I know Professor McCoy in kinesiology is working with exergaming in some of our Zoom. Even if the cognitive doesn't work, at least they're forced to physically engage with the task. So if you know Wii, you actually have to move things around, and you can get them a balance board, and they have to move on the balance board and interact. So they're not sitting just moving a cursor and normal thing. Wii forces you to actually physically engage with the system. So the nice thing about the Wii system is it requires physical and cognitive effort to play. So this was a French study just recently done. They did one group who played 1 hour of Wii games, and there was a whole range of them: Wii Fit, Wii Trampoline, Wii Tennis. And they did it for 1 hour twice a week, 12 weeks. They used exercise. Control group of time. And the results are really quite good. When you look at the effect of on the physical measures, just from doing, these are physical physical fitness, physical flexibility, and physical strength, there's a significant improvement in nearly all of them from doing this 12 weeks of Wii games. Now, there's tested immediately after, so we don't know how far it goes on, but it's a kind of an engaging task. But even more impressive is when you look at all these cognitive tasks, particularly executive function tasks, which is where we're targeted where the problem might occur, you see significant improvement on the performance of these Wii games. And nearly all of these, even psychomotor speed, processing speed, visualization tasks, maybe not so much these ones, but all of them are showing significant improvements in performance for playing Wii twice a week for a week. So the secret to your grandparents this Christmas, or whenever you celebrate their birthday, is to all get the family together and buy them a Wii game. Even if the cognitive exercise doesn't help physically, we know for a fact that that's but encouraging that it looks like cognitive exercise. Alright, I want to finish on a good note because it's been all bad. This is encouraging. Any questions?